What is up? My name is Timbo B. Davis. I used to coach football, so now I have a podcast. It's what we do when we're done with coaching. Today, we are bringing Big Sexy back. What does that mean? We're talking all things O-line. Today's focus, while on the spread offense O-line, has applicable lessons for everybody because I just love these guys. You know, we're not supposed to play favorites. We're really not. But I'm not going to lie. These guys are my favorite. Always have been, always will be. Let's bring it back. Let's go.
As a travel.
So there we were. We're playing a team that had not lost the game in 60 plus games. Somehow we're right there on the 1 yard line with 1 second left. We had never called or practiced under center quarterback sneak. Call a timeout. I had another play in mind. Don't even remember what it was. And I looked in the faces of the O-Lineman, and 5 for 5 said, "Coach, give it to our quarterback, Bubba. Let's quarterback sneak. We got you. We'll get you the yard." I will never forget that moment. And I was, thinking about this, coming into this podcast, thinking about the story to tell. There's probably not a better coaching story where I gave full trust to the kids. Here we are on the road, trying to do something for us, which would be history, with a program that's been dominant over us, over everybody in the state. And 1 second left. My goodness, those guys pushed for a yard. We probably got exactly 36 inches, maybe 36.5. It was very close. Great defensive line play by our opponent. But our O-line got the game won in that moment. And I'll never forget the looks in their faces in that huddle. It was just it was one of the greatest moments of trust and collaboration and love and challenge. And let's just go get this done. Special moment in my coaching career. But I want to rewind a little bit in my career and go all the way back to the beginning where I was an assistant. I'd done some C-team stuff, some JV stuff, and I'd worked my way up to varsity and was a skills position, did DBs, receivers. And one of my mentors, Numi Alalio, who was the coordinator, he would say this all the time. If you want to really know how to run an offense, how to design a practice plan, how to organize a team, you got to coach O-line. And if there's a lesson that you can hear in the first 2-3 minutes of the show today, it's that if you're out there and you desire to be a coordinator and a head coach someday, somewhere in your coaching career, be an O-line coach, be an assistant O-line coach. Learn from the big guy. Maybe go do your own research. We'll talk about that today. But you need to learn how to coach the men up front. No matter what offense you run, wing T, veer, spread, power spread, air raid, doesn't matter. You have to know how to coach O-line and how to work with the O-line as a coordinator and as a head coach. So today's show is all about that. It's dedicated to the big boys up front and learn how to coach with them, for them, and learning how to work with that O-line coach who might be the most important coach in your program when it comes to the offensive production you're going to get. And I'll tell you what, I have been able and been blessed to work with many good O-line coaches. Some have gone on to be coordinators. Some have gone on to be head coaches. And the O-line coach we got on today's show, Alex Navarro, I have no doubt is on his way to being one of the greatest O-line coaches I've ever worked with. And so I'm excited. So let's dig into all things offensive line. So let's just put it all on the table right now. O-linemen are athletes, and they need to be treated as athletes. And this is super, super vital. They don't need to be treated like big athletes. Yes, they're big athletes. They need to be treated like athletes. And one of my biggest mistakes early on was treating these guys like the big boys and thinking like we needed to run 1 billion yards and get them into shape. And that's not how you build an O-line. That's not how you build confidence and trust. So how do you do that? Well, first of all, it starts in training sessions. And I think training sessions, I'm a big sprint-based football guy. I love sprint-based football. And I think for the bigs, it might even be more important to sprint and reach those maximal velocities. I want to be clear and define sprinting for this podcast. Sprinting to us is not running repeat 100s. Sprinting to us is running 3 to 5 mile per hour max velocity tests 2 to 3 times a week with 5 minutes of rest in between. The big guys have to be celebrated for their effort on those sprints. Their mile per hour should mean something. So as you're training the bigs, yes, your strength training coach should be involved, and we'll have a whole podcast on training for the football season. But one thing I need everybody to hear about the bigs is they should operate in systems, energy systems that they're going to use in the game. 5 seconds of fury, 20 seconds of a shuffle, 10 seconds of a rest, recover, and mentally lock into the next play, and another 5 seconds of fury. And you know what? Running 100 yards does none of those things. Because by the first 20, 30 yards, that O-Lineman certainly is not sprinting anymore. They've reached top speed, and they're now losing that top speed. So how can we train O-Linemen? Again, I go back to sprint-based football. They should be sprinting three times a day, roughly 2 to 3 times a week. And it should be measured. You should give them some type of metric or a score so that they can compete with the fast guys. Maybe their weight load, maybe what they can push with the bench and the squat, or however you're doing your off season. Make the training and the sprinting a competition that they have a chance to compete in, or at least have a number of some sort. We took weight load and multiplied it. You can play around with that. But I think, again, going back to this, treat these guys like peak athletes. These guys are special, and they need to play like that. They should not be burdened by 200 yards of sprinting. Nobody on your program should. But they should not be burdened by big sprints. They should be burdened, if you will, by repeat intensities of max velocity, max movement, throwing a ball, pushing a body for 5 seconds, and then lay off. So what can you do in your weight room system? What can you do in your off-season training to work in those energy systems to help them become the most violent movers on the field? Movers. I think it's in vogue to talk about knee benders versus waist benders. We want those knee benders, right? And it's not in vogue. It's truth. You want those. And so what are you doing to increase the mobility of your bigs? Everything from making yoga something to be celebrated, mobility work in general. There's so much information online about building mobility into athletes of all sizes. Functional movement's what you're looking for. And at the high school level, functional movement needs to be celebrated. It needs to be some type of competition in on that. I don't know what that looks like. Running, getting cones, picking up tennis balls, whatever those type of things are. But really celebrating an O-Lineman that can move. An O-Lineman that plays with good leverage and is somebody that has the capacity to be explosive and explosive over and over and over again throughout the course of the game. Size does not become such a variable at the high school level. In fact, most of us will not coach many Division I framed O-Linemen. And if we do, more often than not, they're not great movers. So what we want to do is do everything we can to encourage movement. What are some of the ways that we can encourage movement? I think deep squats, back squats, front squats especially, with the thighs at parallel or below are really important. We've already mentioned yoga. I think all sorts of different stretching routines. Lunges, those type of activities where you can see if they're losing their core, if they're rounding their back, or how can they set their core and move. Work with your strength training coach on this. I don't want to get bogged down on strength training. However, I do believe in my heart of hearts, not run into the ground like cross-country runners, and they need to be celebrated. Too often, the O-Linemen are the kids that weren't told they could play because their Pop Warner or their local youth level football said they were too big. They weren't picked on the team at recess because they were called fat. They were called names. That's unfortunate. And it's such a disservice to our dudes who are athletes, who are big athletes. So let's celebrate their athleticism. Let's help them grow. Let's help them develop knee bend. Let's help them develop agility. Let's help them develop ankle mobility and do all those things to train up the O-line to be the movers you want them to be. Contact prep is an incredibly important way to get our big guys healthy, safe, and have that Navy SEAL mentality. What does contact prep look like? Well, the best contact prep you can do is wrestling. And if you're not in a wrestling program, one of the things you could potentially do is go to your wrestling coach, get the mats out, and have these big guys wrestling. Having their arms turning and their bodies moving in ways that they might not always move when they're not playing ball is such an important thing for them to work on. I think that anytime you can do mat drills and have big guys that are on the ground that have to get up off the ground and go is another way that you can help prep contact. Eccentric or even upper body plyometrics, doing push-ups from a bench press or on the benches, and then put a bench on the right hand, a bench on the left hand, and then drop down in the center into like a narrow grip push-up, and then let yourself go to the ground, but keep your upper body off the ground by like 2 inches. That's a really great one. Those eccentric movements. O-linemen in their training should be punching stuff and should be finding force. You should be finding the most ways to create these force positions that they're going to find themselves in the game. But the O-linemen have to focus on these things because this is how we get them to be those movers and those explosive athletes and those durable athletes that we're going to really put the whole team on their backs. Let's find ways to develop that and help these guys be elite. Nutrition. O-linemen are big dudes, and we got to feed them. I've talked about feeding them, and I've talked about it in more of a party type environment, a pizza party. We need to work with our O-linemen on their nutrition. Oftentimes, some of our guys just aren't getting the right types of foods. Education is important. You know what? I'm going to go on a soapbox here for a second. I believe the number one problem in American education, I hope you're ready for this, the lack of quality food and physical education that matters during the day. I think if you built schools around great nutrition with real food and you gave authentic physical growth opportunities that tie into the things that athletes are interested in, whether that's the sport they play in an athletic period, which many schools around the nation enjoy, whether that's training from an athletic coach with certification that knows exactly what they're training. That's going to be a whole nother podcast. I think that we need to feed guys, teach them how to eat well, teach them a balanced diet, encourage a balanced diet, direct them to life skills they're going to take. Here's the deal. The lights turn off on Friday night of that senior year. It's like the last game of their season, and you won't see these guys every day again. Your input won't be there. What have you taught them? And there's a lot of statistics that show that what we do as far as our nutrition habits and our exercise habits between the ages of roughly 16 to 22 are going to be the majority of our lifelong fitness habits. Let's teach these guys how to eat. And we'll do a whole podcast on nutrition, but let's teach these guys how to eat properly, a balanced diet. Let's help them. Let's go shopping with them. The hero of heroes for me in the O-line world is a guy named Brian Hamilton. He's now an assistant at Missouri, or he was this past season. He coached at Cal, but he's a longtime high school teacher. And you know, one of the things he did when he was at Murray State, I believe, he would take his guys shopping. He would give them $10, $15, and they go shopping for food. And he'd teach them how to shop. He'd teach them how to buy food. And he could show you the value in the food they were consuming. He would equate that bag of chips to potentially medical bills down the line, however you want to look at that. He would take them shopping and teach them the necessary skills to create a balanced diet. You know what? Maybe that's what schools need to be doing. That's what football programs need to be doing. We need to take our guys shopping with a $20 bill and go teach them how to to build a nutritious meal that can be helpful and full of value in their life. And realistically, most of our guys might know what good food is and what bad food is, but I don't think they've necessarily been given the tools to develop their own diets with the same amount of intensity that we teach them how to run outside zone. And I think that needs to change. And I think strategically there's benefit in that. If you have a healthy O-line that eats well, that's been taught by someone who cares about them, I think you're going to get improved results on the field. And I think the return on investment in that one shopping trip that you do maybe once a season, maybe once a month, I think the factors of growth are exponential, and it will change a young man's life. It'll change a young man's life who's only been told they're one type of body size or they're this or that. You know what? You are that type of body size. Let's go learn how to move it. Let's go learn how to strengthen it. Let's go learn how to fuel it. I get fired up about this stuff because O-linemen are incredibly dear to my heart. I think one of the big things in O-line is to not assume and be very careful in high school of passing the eye test or giving the eye test to, and I'm not talking about the left, right, left pro agility. I'm talking about the guy that's 6'7", 330, 350, who looks amazing. Can they move? What's their punch like? Do they struggle with a certain type of athlete? You know, these are things that one of the important things you can do in the off season is to build a profile for your offensive line. You know, who runs certain agility drills the best. So don't assume. Eyes can be deceiving. You have to create a profile. You've done all these contact drills. You've done these mat drills. You've rolled around. You've seen what they can do in those 5 foot by 5 foot boxes, if you will. We cherish and value their top mile per hour because that is a workout. That is a way to introduce max velocity, those type of stresses on the body that only max velocity can do. But that's not necessarily going to be a measure of how good of a lineman they are. I'll tell you what, though, a max velocity 16, 17 mile an hour lineman, that's going to be pretty good in high school. That guy's probably an athlete, probably is a knee bender, probably is somebody who can play with phenomenal leverage. That's a side note. But again, don't assume who your best guys are. So we've been to the weight room. We've gone through the off-season of training. What do you do before you actually go on field for the first time? One of the most important themes I keep bringing up is that kids aren't going to learn something without the meaning behind it. And the perceived meaning behind I can bench press 600 pounds slowly is that I'm strong. And certainly you are strong, but that strength might not be the type of strength we need. And even the back squat can be a deceiving metric when you're thinking about the ability to bend and play with leverage and push and run the feet and hand position and intelligence and smarts and knowledge of the scheme. So let's go there. Let's talk scheme. Scheme should be installed before you ever go onto the field and play physical football for these guys. They should have a time in the classroom where they can walk through different scenarios, make it easy at first, give them a base look, and don't change that base look. Talk only about that base look. Teach from that base look. Whatever that base look happens to be for you, install that, walk through that, do that on chairs, do that on trash cans, do that in a place where no one's pushing anybody over. Explain where the street fight is going to be. The worst thing you can do is set up a fight and go out and roll up to the park to fight the opponent, and it's the wrong park. Not that anybody would go to a park and get in a fight, but you get what I'm saying, I hope. When you coach up the O-line, you got to tell them where the fight is and how they're going to take the fight to the opponent. And that gets into double teams and all this stuff. And whatever your scheme is, it can be wing T, it can be spread, it can be outside zone based, it could be inside zone based, it could be duo based, gap scheme. It doesn't matter. They should know the intention of what they're about to get trained to do on the field before they go out and do it. Imagine trying to step into a boxing ring and not know the rules of the boxing match. we got to teach them the rules. We got to teach them all the stuff in the classroom as much as possible. Cherish on-field work time with the bigs. Absolutely cherish every little bit of that, and get those guys taught up in the classroom. Use all methods at your disposal. Drawing things on paper, giving them paper tests, using clips. Ideally, always use end zone clips from behind your offense when teaching your O-line. Don't force them to decode left and right. Some people aren't spatially gifted like that. Let them see it from behind. Go Army Edge. We've talked about the virtual reality used in Go Army Edge. Use the Go Army Edge app. Set up that base defense on Go Army Edge. Put it on a big screen TV or projector and have your O-line standing there and sorting it out, running through all your plays. Get your knowledge up front loaded in. This is going on at the same time you've been doing all the physical training in the weight room, sprints, all the things that you're doing to prepare for the season. Equally invest in the scheme so that they know. So what scheme? We haven't done a full-on scheme podcast yet, and at some point we're going to. But I think when thinking about O-line scheme, let's go ahead and I'll speak from a place that I know. I'm not a wing T guy. I played in it. I'm not a veer guy. I've watched it. My background is somewhere between the power spread and the air raid. So let's dive in to those concepts and think about that mindset. Not even those concepts. Let's dive into the mindset it takes to be a lineman in the spread. It's thankless, right? Sometimes you don't even have a tight end or a fullback with you. It's just 5 of you versus the world. And the defense can do some pretty twisted things with a good defense coordinator. So what are we going to do with those guys in the spread offense? How are we coaching up the offensive line? So I think in the spread, you have to deliver the tools for the O-lineman. Each play is a tool. Outside zone, wide zone, inside zone, duo, power, counter. These are tools. And I'm not going to say game planning is overrated. That's not the right term, I think. But perfecting the tools versus as many looks as possible through the course of a season is probably one of your best moves. So talking about the offseason, starting a base 40 front, starting a base 30 front, maybe give them those 2 fronts and then work out whatever it's going to be. If you're a spread team, I really think you need some type of inside zone type run. It could be duo with an H-back or an attached tight end. I like inside zone. I think you need an outside run play. This is something that in our later years we tried to simplify, and I think we maybe oversimplified. We did a lot of pin pull. I enjoy pin pull. It's a great gap scheme. We'll talk about gap in a minute here. But if we're talking inside zone, I think it almost helps you, depending on how you're going to coach up your inside zone or your mid zone or whatever you call it. I think it also helps you to install outside zone pretty quick. And here's why. I think outside zone as a play can appeal to many running backs, and it can be a tool if your offensive linemen have a profile to run that style of offense. Outside zone also complements the backside of inside zone when you might be trying to cut people off and run to the next level. I think there's a lot of tools from outside zone that translate throughout. And I think there's a benefit to even teaching outside zone, even if you're going to rely more on power and inside zone. I think there's benefit to that. So I would highly recommend, and this is just my opinion, I think if I get back into this thing, I'm going to base a lot off the outside zone and then make later on decisions based on the profile of the O-line and the running backs and the quarterback. I think power and man and gap schemes are really solid schemes when you have limited amount of time to teach the scheme, the X's and O's to the guys. I think the idea of, is there somebody in my gap? I down block them. Is there not? I go to the down backer. I think there's power in that when you're running power and counter. So consider those schemes when you have a younger group. I think a younger group benefits more from the man and gap schemes. But once your O-linemen are now starting to read defensive fronts. Maybe you have an experienced O-line. I really do think that teaching outside zone has a tremendous amount of athleticism that it can build in. It has a tremendous amount of athletic drills. It has ways you can measure their bend and their ability to run and their ability to strike, their ability to work in teams. I think outside zone is just a great teaching tool. I think inside zone does require a ton of teamwork. And I think if you're coaching it like a duo scheme, a more of a man-based scheme where you're just simply going, is there somebody in my down gap and I'm working up? I think there's merit again in that in getting guys in the right spot. I don't think you're gonna have a lot of busts there. But if you have the opportunity to start working with guys, getting your inside zone game on point, complementing it with power and counter, I think is really important. So an inside zone or an inside run, an outside run, and some type of power or counter or both, because they really do work together in tandem, I think is not overloading an O-line, especially if you're working in the classroom in January You don't got to work a ton. Once every other week, once a week, have a meeting, go buy some food, get the pizza out. Let's watch some film. Let's see how outside zone looks at the collegiate level. Let's see how outside zone looks. Use this off-season time, these lunch times in the building. Get everybody together. Get them excited. One of the things to consider then is how the O-line is coached. They really need to be coached by a team. In fact, the O-line coach is your next closest thing to a coordinator you have when you're a head coach. That guy should run the O-line like a special group that serves the entire program. And realistically, one guy can't fully do it by themselves. I firmly believe that you should have at least 2 O-line coaches at a varsity type level. They should work in tandem. How cool is it that our guest today, Alex Navarro, for years now, we've had 2 of his brothers, Drew and Tony, along with us. Drew now is at another school in town where his kid's at. And this is special to have brothers team coaching a position. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. You've hit the field and it's camp. It's some type of spring training or summer camp. It's now time to start building your profile. This is where don't assume becomes really important. You might have a really smart guy who struggles with certain concepts physically. You might have a physically gifted guy who's clueless on the field. You have to start working to establish their profiles. And I would highly recommend you publish that profile to that athlete and let them know exactly where they stand. And I would encourage doing this in a way where everybody on the team knows the strengths and weaknesses of everybody on the field. They will, because they're going to be going against each other. And you can let their teammates know how to build their strengths and diminish their weaknesses. And along with a team of coaches, I think O-linemen need feedback on film instantly, because there's 5 of them in a pile, in a close, condensed area. And you might be able to coach one guy on one play. Maybe you can coach a double team. It's very difficult to coach to detail and intent and intensity without film. Alex filmed everything for us at West. In fact, most of our practice film was an iPhone behind the quarterback, 10, 15 yards behind the quarterback, and it was Alex holding that phone. So film these guys, film everything. If you do it on the Huddle app, you can film it. You can show them right there on the field, instant feedback. And again, going back to training, what a great way to script practice. If you have the ability, 5, 6 plays with your ones, get them off, send them off to the sideline, and start breaking down that drive right there on the sideline. Have your huddle sideline up and going if you have the resources to do that, is an idea as well. But if you don't, all it takes is somebody with an iPad. Maybe you have one guy filming practice, one guy filming for the replay. Those guys should be getting instant feedback. They should see where their feet are. They should see effort level. So this is a great opportunity right then and there on the field to coach them up. You don't need speeches. You don't need a ton of coaching, actually. If you've laid the groundwork in the classroom and in the weight room and in the sprints and in the technique stuff, you just got to show them what happened on film. And oftentimes they're going to go out and fix it. And you can give them guidance to do that. But they got to have that film, that instant feedback. The latest you could give instant feedback is the next day. Sometimes it's better if a kid's having a mentally off day to give them that feedback the next day. They're more receptive, but I think it's really important. If you can give them feedback within the next 10 minutes, that's the most powerful form of feedback. We weren't able to always get that done when I was a head coach, but that's going to be something I really work at the next time around I'm working with a team, is how can we give O-Linemen instant feedback in the midst of practice? It's a very, very powerful tool, and it's really how they're going to learn. As you're doing this as a coach, this will help you develop your mentality of play calling with these guys, what you can do and what you can't do. So build the profile and work directly with your O-line coach. I know I've been speaking almost as if you are the O-line coach, but these are things the offensive coordinators need to be doing with the O-line coach. The O-line coach cannot be the guy that gets sent to the corner of the field. In fact, this is a good time to talk about it. The O-line needs to be celebrated, celebrated, celebrated. They are the heroes. They will not get the shine on game day and in the paper consistently. They'll get the quarterback giving them a shout out and maybe buying them gifts in the NFL. But the O-line need to be celebrated in your team culture. Do not send the O-lineman off to a faraway place so that the skill guys can run 7-on-7 for that period. Make sure that your O-line has good chunks of grass to work in. They have coveted real estate, if you will. Take care of those guys, celebrate them throughout and during practice, because their job is by far the least glamorous when it comes to the media, when it comes to the newspaper. So we need to make on the program, we need to make sure that the O-linemen are elevated throughout the whole process of team growth. They're the ones literally pushing the opponent out of the way so we can grow and succeed as a team. So you've heard this a billion times, but celebrate them. What does that mean? That means food. That means shirts. That means all sorts of things. And you know what? The best person to talk to about what that means is the O-line coach I had a blessed time to work with. His name is Alex Navarro. He's a guy that graduated from West Anchorage High School. He gave me a call one day and said, "Can I come out and help?" And he's grown as a leader and a man in this community for all kids. This is a special interview to me for many, many reasons. They all are, right? But Alex is a guy who knows his stuff and has a heart to serve the community and our kids. So check it out. Alex Navarro talking how we can celebrate these guys. All right, so our guest, like I just said, is Coach Alex Navarro. He's been the O-line coach at West for a few years, worked with his brothers. But Alex reached out to me a few years ago and asked to help coach the O-line, and it was the greatest decision as a head coach I made to get him on board. So Alex, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
Pretty good. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. I'm great now. I'm excited to see you, big man. The name of the podcast officially is Bringing Big Sexy Back. It's not just clickbait, but maybe throw a little clickbait in there. Who knows? Where does this name, the Kings, come from with the O-lineman?
I guess prior to coming on board with West, I was grandfathered into it. It was a grandfather into the Kings entity by my predecessor, Coach Zach Flemings, who's now OC at Norman North,
correct,
down in Oklahoma. So when I was under his wings and I saw everything he was doing, man, I just loved how it stood out. I loved how it adapted into the group itself, and I just love how the players embraced it. So I didn't want to change it. It was there, but I did want to blow it up even more bigger, and then it eventually did. So that's where it came from. I mean, I'm not sure how Coach Zach Flemings got it, but I mean, it was a good choice for him to pick it, and we stuck with it, and we're rolling with the ball with it.
So what does it mean to be a King at West Anchorage High School?
To be a King, man, you got to understand, like, you're a different breed. You got to understand that you're different from everyone else. Sure, we could preach the whole, One Eagle family, but we are that, I guess, that big brother within the family, one that everybody would rely on, the one that everybody would come to and ask questions, and we're there to help out as much as we could. So, yeah, that the big guy. Hey, let me lend a shoulder to you to cry on, and let me make you laugh. We just lost the game, sure, okay, but hey, got another one, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Unflappable. No, and I think that really the best kings have been those that I've gotten a chance to work with, have been those guys that are unflappable, that have that very centered mindset. Let's talk about developing this group. What in the off season, what things do you enjoy doing? You operate a consulting and development group, Cold Front, and you're working at developing kings or O-Linemen across the city and really helping kids grow. In this off season, what skills, drills, what things are you doing to help develop these guys?
So in the off seasons, we do have off-season workouts specifically for the Kings, drills that are consistent with your basic online skills and fundamentals. That ranges from footwork to hand placements, from the dynamics to med ball workouts up to basic run blocks, pass pros. It's just the simplest things that we want to make sure that they stay fresh on. The basics, just the basic fundamentals every day we try to run it, during our workouts. And then, probably the last half hour, we'll go ahead and run into specifics, combo blocking, or, we'll go over in the classroom session type of, what gap is what, A, B, C gap, or, a defensive alignment of 2 tech, 3 tech, 5, stuff like that. So, it all starts early on the off season.
I love that you're teaching that vocabulary early. We talked about that earlier in the show about the need to get in the classroom and educate, so these guys know how to be fierce. It's tough to be fierce when you don't know where to go be fierce at. What is as you're doing that? How are you looking for the Kings that are going to play for West Anchorage High School? How are you looking for their strengths and weaknesses? How are you developing and helping build their strengths, mitigate their weaknesses? How do you profile that? What is that step from the time in January when they hit after school weights to the time they roll out to spring ball in May?
We evaluate and analyze their technical skills and physical abilities. From there, we want to ID areas they're good at. We want to ID areas they need improvement in. And then we want to evaluate their consistency and performance. It's like, we can't just throw anybody out there. We got to make sure that they know what they're doing. They got to learn. They got to want to do it is the main part. It's hard to find offensive linemen. Everybody want to be a defensive lineman. So, that's where we fall at. Is just, we got to keep on with the evaluating and analyzing.
You just said something that came to me that I have not talked about. Most of these guys, they all want to be the tight end. They all want to be a D lineman. They all want to be a fullback. How do you keep this group coming back recharged? Like, this is the place to be, because for some of these guys, this is the place to be.
We sell it. Yeah. We sell it, man. We just gotta, it comes down to, like, hey, we got a belt for you if you got, lineman of the game, or hey, we got a pancake chain. As soon as if you, the way we do it is, if you receive or if you given a pancake on a touchdown drive, you come off to the side, throw the chain on, let me snap a picture that goes right up to social media to go ahead and blow them up, let them know that they accomplished it. It's hard to do. It's hard to pancake somebody, especially, like 6'5", 300-something pound D linemen. It's hard to do that. So, some of the boys, we kind of said, it was kind of easy to do in the area drive. Why don't we just do it touchdown drives? Perfect. We stuck with it. So selling things like that, with the hoodies and then our team bonding trips, those are things that make them want to come back. Those are things that, okay, this is the real deal core group, so they just, ever since we kept doing that, they just want to stay. And then it turns out to them where they're recruiting, folks within the class or within school. And they said, hey, have you heard about the King's Belt? Well, you get it if you join. That's something to walk around. Everybody's going to be astonished from the hallways and be like, "Hey, what is that?"
Now, just for the viewers and listeners, will be kind of the listeners. We'll try to describe this. What does the King's Belt look like? What is this thing?
Oh man. Oh, hold on one
You
second
got it?
there. I'm glad you.
Yeah.
So here's the King's Belt. On the end we have win the play, because that's what it's all about. Win the play. So it's a nice heavy duty 6-pounder. That's something that they'll walk around, and I've seen pictures, I've seen videos of the boys. They wear it all day long. They wear it from walking to class, whether it's on their shoulders or around their waist if it fits. They're walking to the store. They're walking through Walmart with it on. So that's our King's Belt. That's what sells them, man. They take pride in that. And honestly, I believe we are the only one that supplies the O-Linemen's an accommodation like that.
You gotta get Drew on that. Them T-Birds need a belt too. Now I'm an equal opportunity guy now, so we gotta, yeah.
I told them, I was like, he needs to get it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but this is up for retirement. This is year 4 or 5 with it. I have another one shipping in with new up to date. The boom wows for that belt.
That's so cool. And for those of you who couldn't tell, the Navarro brothers are a little bit into the professional wrestling, which is near and dear to my heart. So it's like, and by the way, the Navarro brothers would be a great professional wrestling team. By the way, I'd buy tickets to that. That'd be great. Oh man, let's talk about it. Coaching with your brothers. We had Drew on for a few years. We got Tony on now. What's that like, that dynamic, coaching? Because I talked about the need to coach the O-lineman as a team. I said that the O-line coach is the next coordinator, really. Because what's that like, working with a staff, bringing those O-line guys in? How do you work in tandem like that with whether it's your brothers or whoever you got?
Man, so it all comes down to syncing. Man, we all got to be synced together, and I've been blessed, honored that so far we, these last few years, even with Coach Drew over at East, it doesn't really matter. We do a lot of work together, even off to the side, out of school, or when it comes to cold front, we search up the newest blocking scheme. We search up the newest technique to coach, and with myself, Tony, Coach Drew, we put it all into plan. We coach it up to our guys, and we throw it out there and say, hey, what I teach is what he teach. Best man wins when we play each other. So syncing like that, it makes it all, mesh all well together. Especially, with our current staff now, these guys are like, yeah, okay, that's how you run it. That's you. Let's do it. So a lot of good with that. Everybody's open to new ways of blocking schemes, and everybody's open to what works for them.
What's really cool is that as an observer, even as the head coach, I was able to watch you build up cold front, and I watched this community grow. And it's bigger than football. I think that's a really, really important thing that you guys have done, and a really great opportunity you've given the community for our guys, because so much of off-season training revolves around, skinny guys running around all over the place. And I get that. It's good. I like skills. I was a receiver coach, I get that. But it's special. It's special what you guys are doing, so keep that up. What are you looking for in these guys that we call kings as far as a leader? Like, when you're looking for, what are the characteristics that design your perfect leader as a king? What does that guy look like?
The leadership of the kings are typically players who, possess a combination of skills or traits and qualities that would inspire and motivate not just their positional group, but teammates, to perform at their best. We want to exemplify what it falls back on mirroring what a captain is, being responsible for representing not just that group, for the team, take the lead on things, help underclassmen, help teammates that don't understand their assignments. But yeah, that's they're. I guess you could say they're viewed as the bigger brother. We'll fall back on that. The bigger brother that's always there to help.
I love that, the idea of bigger brother. Now, the bigger brothers have responsibility, so they're out there, and your practice looks a little different than some of the other positions. Walk me through a day in the life of a King playing for Coach Alex Navarro.
We normally try to make it outside at least 10, 15 minutes before everybody hits the field. At that time, we initiate our O-line specific EDDs, where we run our run on air, basic run blocks, pass blocks, our steps, footings for zones or for power or for whatever plays that we're working on there. We also add the fundamentals, the proper footwork, footsteps. We go bags, boards, chutes, sleds, everything that we would normally be scheduled to do during practice time, we knock out then. And what happens is it gives us the opportunity to not only get warmed up before everybody else, but it comes to when it comes to our EDD blocks on the practice plans, we sort of deviate from it. That way we can work on our blocking schemes for specific plays during that time. So everything we try to hit early on, 10, 15 minutes prior to practice before everybody walks out. By the time we're done with that, then everybody's already out on the field ready for the team warm-ups.
As Coach Feckley talked about that too with the quarterbacks that need to warm their arms up and get out there early. I'd never really quite seen dedication with the O-line but you guys did that, and you do that. You grab that extra block of time, that EDD time, and you burn them really quick and let the heart rate come down. And then when you get to the EDD time, you are able to focus on some of those skills and scheme-based things. I talked earlier in the podcast about how game planning is sort of overrated in the sense that you're really like, you might have to run, you might think you're going into a game running power 10 times. You might end up running outside zone 10 times or in, something different. And so I think the way you do that's a really great deal to get out and knock some sled work out. If you're going to push a sled or you have a sled, knock some bag workout ahead of time. That's good stuff, man. I like that. I like that a lot. You filmed a lot in practice. I talked about this earlier too. You filmed a lot. Tell me about the role of film. Not only, just tell me about the role of film. How do you use film? How do you like to utilize that?
So I definitely use my phone, iPhone 16 Pro Max, and it has a real clear 4K image on recording. And I personally like to record because I'm in the back there. We get to see everything up close, personal as far as the lines go. I'm able to zoom in. I'm able to see what foot work they're doing, what specific footwork or technique they're using. Hand placements. I'm able to see who missed that pull, who missed that down block. I'm able to see everything. Clear view, 4K image. And I think every team should be able to do that, because when we place it up back on huddle, when it comes to a missed play or a missed block, I'm able to say, hey, you can't really argue that. You can't throw your hands up and play victim and say, oh, I didn't know, or, oh, no, that wasn't me. That wasn't my fault, when I could go right there, rewind real quick, and then we'll take this second to see that you messed up. You're supposed to do this instead of that. So It is very beneficial to record. And I love recording. I love having to automatically send it to huddle. And I love having the opportunity to rewind on everything and coach up the boys what it is that, if they have done anything wrong, we're able to fall back on it and say, hey, here's what happened. Whoops.
Well, it preps you so well for game day. Tell me about tell the viewers what you do on game day, really between every series.
Oh, yeah. So on game days, I do have an iPad, and everything we have on subtle huddle sideline is it goes right onto my iPad. So as soon as every series is done, we sit at the one of the benches that are signed for our positional group, and we go through each footage. We go through each play that we saw that didn't work out for us, and we talk it out. I have a whiteboard right next to me, so in case I got to draw it up on a bigger board for them to see. But yeah, the having an iPad is handy, works perfect for me to go back to every series, every play that we might have missed, and they'll see the mistakes that may have happened, or see what we could move forward with as far as hey, so we practice on blocking this type of way. Let's switch this up and then see where we go from there. So it falls, it works out perfect.
Yeah, those in-game adjustments, I know as an OC, I really relied on those from you guys because oftentimes, ideally, if I'm in my position right, I'm watching a specific thing, whether that's the apex defender, the safeties, and looking for something and really relying heavily. And I think for every offensive coach and head coach out there who's calling the game, I think it's so important to lean on these guys and their assessment, and that has to be built through trust. And I think that was really fun, getting to work with you guys for so many years. Like you were like, hey, this ain't it today. I trust you. Yeah, it's not it today. I'm going to change my play calling and find the next way to solve a problem, whether that's bring in a body, whether that's take out a body, and change up how we do things, or the play calling. And it's like, hey, we're having a tough time with this rush or whatever. Let's try. I appreciated that. And I think that from the head coach position, you built that trust with me by pulling those guys aside in practice as soon as you could and show them on film, like, this ain't it, I think it's super important. Well, last couple questions for you, Coach. What, you've mentioned the shirts, you've mentioned the belt, you've mentioned selling it. What are some of the other things you do to build a brotherhood, an authentic brotherhood that is going to last for a season and beyond?
The bond between, the Kings, it stays strong because we invest in it. We invest in the brotherhood. By doing so, we do a lot of things together, just our positional group. Simple things like texting the group chat. We're all in the group chat, texting the group chat. Hey, I'm online. Who's trying to get on Call of Duty? Let's run a few rounds on that. Some of them will be like, hey, let's run a few rounds on Fortnite. Let's get a couple dubs. It goes from there to, NCAA or Madden, or even NBA 2K, stuff like that. From there, is either gaming online or, we'll have our morning game day breakfasts. Of course, it's, can't go wrong with going to Corral breakfast to start the day. So we'll meet up and we'll go to Golden Corral or to Denny's or some local spot close by. We'll eat until it's time to meet at the Nest, and we'll head there and we'll pull out a sleeping bag and we'll knock out that to going out and watching the latest Marvel flick, which one is happening this Friday. You might text them here soon. Right. So that bowling night, things like that, so it's things like that where they get invested into it, and they know that, oh man, we're the brotherhood. That's what it comes down to. We're all clicking together, we're all meshing, and we're all realizing that it's not just a seasonal thing. I have past Kings that still hit me up and, hey, hop online real quick. We need help. I need you to carry me. So stuff like that, that's what builds it up.
Are you sure you're not asking for them to carry you? Not throwing you under the bus there, Coach. Hey, all I know is that my schedule just opened up a bunch. So I might have to join you for a Golden Corral breakfast one of these game days and hang out with the Kings. catch up on. I have some catching up to do on some of the finer points of life that maybe a head coach can't do. But man, I appreciate your time so much, and I appreciate you. Where can the community find out about Cold Front Athletics?
Hey, so yeah, Cold Front Athletics. We could be found on Facebook, Cold Front Athletics. We could be found on coldfrontathletics.com. We promote it a lot. We are currently in the stage right now. We are in the process of going nonprofit. We have submitted paperwork. So we're waiting for the approval. Once we get that done, we'll be going into a tax exemption 501c3. That way, if anybody's looking to donate to our cause, you'll get tax exempt for that. Yeah, that's where you find us. We're online. We're everywhere. I'm pretty sure everybody scrolled through their news feed and probably seen one or two stories of mine posted up about Coach.
Well, Coach, I appreciate what you've done, not only just for the West Anchorage community, but for Cold Front. You're helping kids no matter what the jersey color is. That means a lot to me, and I know that you continue to protect those that protect us in the nest. And man, blessings on you, and we'll catch you at Golden Corral here in a few months.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
That was freaking cool. Alex is a dear friend of mine. That was awesome, and he has a heart for this thing. Everything from ordering the WWE belt for the Kings to all the things he mentioned, the video games. What a great opportunity to meet the kids where they're at and have positive influence in a place where they're at. That's really cool. That's why Alex is that's why he is good for this game and good for this town and good for this community. And if you ever get a chance to meet him, you're going to be a better person for meeting him. And that goes for his brothers, Tony and Drew. Love those guys dearly. Have had so much fun. Drew went to another school because his son was there, and there's not many coaches who I genuinely root for, not wearing the orange and black. And Drew is one of those guys, and I just those guys are as family as it gets when it comes to football family. A couple thoughts from a OC head coach who never was directly an O-line coach. Always wished I was. I tried to hang out in that room as much as I could when I was the OC and an O-line coach. But one of the big lessons is every man should be a snapper. Every practice should involve everybody snapping for 5 minutes. Start identifying those guys. You lose a center, or a center has the yips, or something occurs, that will shut down a game faster than any single factor. A bad snap over the head, by the way, quarterbacks should practice bad snaps being picked up and making a play and at least trying to throw the ball away. Because as soon as a bad snap goes over a head and quarterback falls on it, it's best case scenario, 2nd and 25. That drive is done. So I would highly recommend quarterbacks practicing picking the ball up. Depending placement on the field, it's almost better for if a turnover happens, it happens. Because that drive is dead on 2nd and 25 more times than not, statistically speaking. That's a side note. Sorry, all you O-line coaches out there like, what the heck? I thought we're talking O-line. But centers got to be perfect. You got to be perfect, which means you have to not just do snaps on air, but you have to practice snaps and give them a sled, give them a kick slide, give them a down block. Make sure the O-lineman isn't just snapping. They're snapping and then taking their first 2 to 3 steps into their play. Involve centers in every possible 7-on-7 activity you can have. Maybe do a 1-on-1 with them in a nose guard, as long as the offensive coaches are aware of it and it's a safe environment for the quarterback. Put a nose guard in front of the center. Let them do a 1-on-1 deal. Start assessing, start building that profile in times of the year that maybe you can steal some of those profile gaining moments. To figure out who can snap, who can bend, who can call a defensive front. Figure those things out as soon as possible. Another power move is getting as many O-linemen on the field as possible. If you're a team that plays with an H-back, have a couple sets where your sixth O-lineman is one of your H-backs. If you're not, find a way to put another O-lineman in. Give an O-lineman a football. Give an O-lineman a tackle screen. Give an O-lineman a tackle pass. Celebrate these guys, protect these guys, have fun with these guys. Final thoughts. The world is messy right now. It's really messy. The world is splitting itself apart, whether you're a donkey or an elephant. And we like to yell at each other, and we like to tell athletes to shut up and just play ball, and we say some wild stuff. And in the game of football, there's 5 dudes who don't care about all the stuff. They care about that group of 4 other guys, their squad. And then they care about the other guys on the field, and they care about the sideline, they care about their community. The O-line is a place for street fighting nerds that are laser focused on accomplishing a job. And I mean that nerds in a good way. I mean they've gone full send on mastering their craft. They've gone full send on techniques that are non-transferable to the working world, to the real world. But in doing so, they're building skills that serve the real world. Maybe more than any other position in any other sport. They're sacrificial heroes, and they're kids. At least the ones that I've got to work with. They're kids. And they grow up, and they get to take the lessons of being an offensive lineman and apply it to their jobs and their families and their communities. And they carry on the laser focus to master the skills that job takes, to work together as the squad, to take care of the team, to take care of the building, to take care of the community. The world needs offensive linemen. So if you get to see an offensive lineman on any particular Friday night, don't yell at him about the holding. Don't tell him to block harder. Give him a big high five. Tell them you appreciate their service to their team, their hard work, their dedication, their love. Because the world needs these guys. They're kids now. They're going to be adults soon. And I cannot wait to meet every one of these adult offensive linemen in future life. That was Rocketboost Coaching. Hopefully you got something out of it. Check out Coach Alex Navarro and Cold Front Athletics. As always, I'm Coach Timbo B. Davis. Catch you next time.